So this is it, Kensuke's Kingdom by Michael Morpurgo. Inside the front cover, if you've got the copy of the book, is this map. It seems to be a bird's eye view of an island, with the title in the bottom left in the sea, Kensuke's Kingdom. We will refer back to this map at points throughout the story, but it's worth having open and just checking now again because there are some interesting doodles and scribbles all over it that give hints about things that are going to happen in the book. On the top right-hand side, we can see some writing, perhaps in a foreign language, above the compass pointing north, south, east and west. As we turn through the opening pages, we have the same kind of things that we would have published in other books, the publishing information and a dedication. This one is dedicated to Graham and Isabella. He says, "Many thanks to Isabella Hutchins, Terence Buckler and Professor Sergio Tonimoto and his family for all their kind help with this book." Then on page 7, we seem to have a list, again in a foreign language, and that will come clear later in the book. And on the next page are contents. I'm just going to draw attention to the fact that there are 10 chapters here, and there's a list of 10 items, so if you could put 2 and 2 together, you might find out that this is the contents page. So the chapters are a little bit longer. I won't be reading full chapters to you, rather I'll be reading kind of sections of each chapter, but the videos will be a little bit longer throughout Kensuke's Kingdom. But let's start with chapter 1, Peggy Sue, and here's an illustration done by our character. I disappeared on the night before my 12th birthday, July 28th, 1998. Only now can I at last tell the story, the whole extraordinary story, the true story. Kensuke made me promise that I would not say anything, nothing at all, until at least 10 years had passed. It was almost the last thing he said to me. I promised, and because of that, I've had to live out a lie. I could let sleeping lies sleep on, but more than 10 years have passed now. I've done school, done college, and had time to think. I owe it to my family and to my friends, all of whom I've deceived for so long, to tell them the truth about my long disappearance, about how I lived to come back from the dead. But there is another reason for speaking out now, a far, far better reason. Kensuke was a great man, a good man, and he was my friend. I want the world to know him as I knew him. Until I was nearly 11, until the letter came, life was normal. There were the 4 of us in the house, my mother, my father, me and Stella Artois, that is, my one ear up and one ear down black and white sheepdog, who always seemed to know what was about to happen before it did. But even she could not have foreseen how that letter was going to change our lives forever. Thinking back, there was a regularity, a sameness about my early childhood. It was down the road each morning to the monkey school. My father called it that because he said the children gibbered and screeched and hung upside down on the climbing frame in the playground. And anyway, I was always monkey-faced to him, when he was in a playful mood, that is, which he often was. The school was really called St. Joseph's, and I was happy there, for most of the time anyway. After school every day, whatever the weather, I'd be off down the recreation ground for football with Eddie Dodds, my best friend in the world, and Matt and Bobby and the others. It was muddy down there. Cross the ball and it would just land and stick. We had our own team, the Mudlarks we called ourselves, and we were good too. Visiting teams seemed to expect the ball to bounce for some reason, and by the time they realised it didn't, we were often 2 or 3 goals up. We weren't so good away from home. Every weekend I did a paper round from Mr. Patel's shop on the corner. I was saving up for a mountain bike. I wanted to go mountain biking up on the moors with Eddie. The trouble was, I would keep spending whatever I'd saved. I'm still that same way. Sundays were always special, I remember. We'd go dinghy sailing, all of us on the reservoir, Stella Artois barking her head off at other boats, as if they'd no right to be there. My father loved it, he said, because the air was clear and clean, no brick dust. He worked down at the brickworks. He was a great do-it-yourself fanatic. There was nothing he couldn't fix, even if it didn't need fixing. So he was in his element on a boat. My mother, who worked part-time in the office at the same brickworks, revelled in it too. I remember her once throwing back her head in the wind and breathing in the deep as she sat in the tiller. "This is it," she cried. "This is how life is supposed to be. Wonderful, just wonderful." She always wore the blue cap. She was the undisputed skipper. If there was a breeze out there, she'd find it and catch it. She had a real nose for it. We had some great days on the water. We'd go out when it was rough, when no one else would, and we'd go skimming over the waves, exhilarating in the speed of it, in the sheer joy of it. And if there wasn't a breath of wind, we didn't mind that either. Sometimes we'd be the only boat on the whole reservoir. We'd just sit and fish instead. By the way, I was better at fishing than either of them, and Stella Artois would be curled up behind us in the boat, bored with the whole thing, because there was no one to bark at. Then the letter arrived. Stella Artois savaged it as it came through the letterbox. There were puncture holes in it, and it was damp, but we could read enough. The brickworks were going to close down. They were both being made redundant. There was a terrible silence at the breakfast table that morning. After that, we never went sailing on Sundays any more. I didn't have to ask why not. They both tried to find other jobs, but there was nothing. A creeping misery came over the house. Sometimes I'd come home and they just wouldn't be speaking. They'd argue a lot about little niggly things, and they never had been like that. And they'd never been like that. My father stopped fixing things around the house. He was scarcely ever home anyway. If he wasn't looking for a job, he'd be down the pub. When he was home, he'd just sit there flicking through endless yachting magazines and saying nothing. I tried to stay out of the house and play football as much as I could, but then Eddie moved away because his father had found a job somewhere down south. Football just wasn't the same without him. The Mudlarks disbanded. Everything was falling apart. Then one Saturday I came home from my paper round and found my mother sitting at the bottom of the stairs and crying. She'd always been so strong. I'd never seen her like this before. "Silly beggar," she said. "Your dad's a silly beggar, Michael, that's what he is." "What's he done?" I asked her. "He's gone off," she told me, and I thought she meant for good. "He wouldn't hear reason, oh no. He had this idea, he says. He wouldn't tell me what it was, only that he sold the car, that we're moving south, and he's going to find us a place." I was relieved and quite pleased, really. South must be nearer to Eddie. She went on. "If he thinks I'm leaving this house, then I'm telling you he's got another thing coming." "Why not? Not much here." "Well, there's the house for a start, and there's Gran, and there's school." "There's other schools," I told her. She became steaming angry then, angrier than I'd ever known her. "You want to know what was the last straw?" she said. "It was you, Michael, you going off on your paper round this morning. You know what your dad said? Well, I'll tell you, shall I? Do you know something? He says, there's only one lousy wage coming into this house, Michael's paper money. How do you think that makes me feel, eh? My son's 11 years old, he's got a job, and I haven't." She steadied herself for a moment or two before she went on, her eyes with fierce tears. "I'm not moving, Michael. I was born here, and I'm not going. No matter what he says, I'm not leaving." I was there when the phone call came, a week or so later. I knew it was my father. My mother said very little, so I couldn't understand what was going on. Not until she sat me down afterwards and told me. "He sounds different, Michael. I mean, like his old self. Like his very old self, like he used to be when I first knew him. He's found us a place. Just pack up your stuff and come, he says. Fareham, somewhere near Southampton. Right on the sea, he says. There's something very different about him, I'm telling you." My father did seem a changed man. He was waiting for us when we got off the train, all bright-eyed again and full of laughter. He helped us with the cases. "It's not far," he said, ruffling my hair. "You wait till you see it, monkey face. I've got it all sorted, the whole thing, and it's no good you trying to talk me out of it, either of you. I've made up my mind." "What about?" I asked. "You'll see," he said. Stella Artois bounded along ahead of us, her tail held high and happy. We all felt like that, I think. In the end, we caught a bus because the cases were too heavy. When we got off, we were right by the sea. There didn't seem to be any houses anywhere, just a yachting marina. "What are we doing here?" my mother asked. "There's someone I'd like you to meet, a good friend of mine. She's called Peggy Sue. She's been looking forward to meeting you. I've told her all about you." My mother frowned at me in puzzlement. I wasn't any the wiser either. All I knew for certain was that he was being deliberately mysterious. We struggled on with our suitcases, the gulls crying overhead, the yacht masts clapping around us, and Stella yapping at all of it, until at last he stopped, right by a gangplank that led up to a gleaming dark blue yacht. He put the cases down and turned to face us. He was grinning from ear to ear. "Here she is," he said. "Let me introduce you. This is the Peggy Sue. Our new home." Well? Considering everything, my mother took it pretty well. She didn't shout at him. She just went very quiet, and she stayed quiet all through his explanation down in the galley over a cup of tea. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing, you know. I've been thinking about it a long time, all those years working in the factory. All right, maybe I was just dreaming about it in those days. Funny when you think about it. If I hadn't lost my job, I'd never have dared to do it, not in a million years. He knew he wasn't making much sense. All right then, here's what I thought. What is it that we all love doing most? Sailing, right? Wouldn't it be wonderful, I thought, if we could just take off and sail round the world? There's people who've done it. Blue water sailing, they call it. I've read about it in the magazines. Like I said, it was just a dream to start with. And then, no job and no chance of a job. What did the man say? Get on your bike? So why not a boat? We've got our redundancy money, what little there was of it. There's a bit saved up. And the car money, not a fortune, but enough. What to do with it? I could put it all in the bank like the others did. But what for? Just to watch it dribble away till there was nothing left? Or, I thought, I could do something really special with it, a once-in-a-lifetime thing. We could sail around the world. Africa, South America, Australia, the Pacific. We could see places we've only ever dreamed of. We sat there, completely dumbstruck. "Oh, I know what you're thinking," he went on. "You're thinking, all we've ever done is reservoir sailing, dinghy sailing. You're thinking he's gone crazy, loopy in the head. You're thinking it's dangerous. You're thinking we'll be flat broke. But I've thought it all out. I even thought of your gran. There's a thing. We won't be gone forever, will we? She'll be here when we get back, won't she? She's perfectly healthy. We've got the money. I've done my sums. We're going to do 6 months training. We'll be away a year, 18 months maybe, just as long as the money lasts. We're going to do it safe, do it properly. Mum, you'll do your yachtsmaster's certificate. Oh, didn't I say? I didn't, did I? You'll be the skipper, Mum. I'll be first mate and handyman. Michael, you'll be ship's boy. And Stella, well, Stella can be the ship's cat. He was full of it, breathless with excitement. We'll train ourselves up. Do a few trips across the channel to France, maybe over to Ireland. We'll get to know this boat like she's one of us. She's a 42 foot. Bowman best make, best design. Safest there is. I've done my homework. 6 months. 6 months' time and we'll be off around the world. It'll be the adventure of a lifetime. Our one chance. We'll never get another one. What do you think? Excellent, I breathed. And that was exactly what I thought. And I'll be the skipper, you say? My mother asked. Aye, aye, Captain. And my father laughed and gave her a mock salute. What about Michael's school? She went on. I've thought of that too. I asked in the local school down here. It's all arranged. We'll take all the books he'll need. I'll teach him. You'll teach him. He'll teach himself. I'll tell you something for nothing. He'll learn more in a couple of years at sea than he ever would in that monkey school of his. Promise. She took a sip of tea and then nodded slowly. All right, she said, and I saw she was smiling. Why not? Go ahead then. Buy the boat. I already have, said my father. In 5STM, that's where we're going to stop at this point in the chapter, so you can head to the English task now. I hope, like me, you are excited about things to come.